Hey, fatty!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Training with Theo. I already shot this video another day actually, but I was kind of in a hurry and it got a little messy. And now I'm actually, like in 1.5 hours, I'm breaking a 48-hour fast. So that seems, appropriate for the topic, which is lose all the fat. So let me just say, I'm kind of tired now. The last time I screwed up because I had kind of this article I had written from before, and I tried to read it and comment during, and it got a little messy and I mixed some things up, but I think I can do it better. I'll try to be charismatic, but I'll be reading some of the screen. So first of all, let's just say that I'm a promoter of prolonged fasting as a great overall health practice, but also for weight loss purposes. Contrary to what many think, you're not starving yourself if you don't eat for, say, 3 days, as long as you have body fat to take from. There's a lot of good cleansing effects that take place in the body, like autophagy, the removal of old damaged cells and regeneration of new healthy ones. And if you're like me, into building muscle, the most amazing part is that fasting causes a big spike in growth hormone, which means fasting is actually very muscle sparing. You are prone to burn mostly body fat in a fasted state. So that's pretty cool. That being said, in this video I will try and lay out the general mindset and ideas in order for you to be able to forge your own weight loss plan. Because, you see, people today, like, they just want to be handed everything, a solution right away, but it doesn't work. An immediate solution is, a band-aid most of the time. Like, take for instance this thing that I just remember that when you were going someplace where you hadn't been before, you had to call there and get directions ahead or something like that. And now you just have to know the address. You know the person's name. If you're visiting someone, you Google their name, get their address, punch it in your phone, and then you can just go like this there. And it's the same with weight loss. Like, what pill do I take? What magic workout program do I buy? What magical diet will just make me be able to eat how much I want and lose 5 kilos a week? Yeah. So my point is, I want to give you the tools. I want to give you the general mindset you should have, lay out the factors you can actually influence to lose weight. Hopefully you'll be able to forge an own weight loss plan. Why do we store body fat? Wouldn't it be better if the body could just take what it needs and then you crap out the rest? Well, for a modern human that would be easier for sure, but when you think about it, it's really a good thing that we store body fat. In the caveman days, we couldn't take food for granted, so when we got to eat, it was a good thing that we could store the excess in the form of body fat. The body is actually this dual fuel vehicle. When we eat, we run on glucose, sugar, and when we don't get to eat, we run on ketones, fat. I think this knowledge makes weight loss seem more doable. When you realize that body fat is actually food, it feels less like you're missing out on something if you try to lose weight. The difference today for us modern humans and the cavemen was that back then getting to eat, the challenge was getting to eat so you don't starve, and now it is not eating too much or wrong foods so we don't get fat or sick. So how do we lose body fat? Well, think of your body as the sum of a mathematical equation. You are a machine that uses a certain amount of fuel every day. If you get less than that amount of fuel from external sources, eating food, the body is going to find the fuel it needs from somewhere in the body instead, fat or muscle. And as a result, you're going to lose weight. If you get more than that amount, the body is going to turn some of that into muscle, provided the right stimulus is applied, lifting weights, and store the rest of the excess as fat. Calories in minus calories out equals amount of weight gained or lost. This I think everyone can understand. To lose weight, there's gonna have to be a negative result at the end of that mathematical equation, and to not gain it back, the result has to stay around 0 on average. If you want to build muscle, it probably has to be a positive result, because you could build muscle on a caloric deficit, but most of the time you want to eat a little more. But we'll skip that part since this episode is mainly about losing fat. There's a lot more finer points to this, but the principle stands. There are ways to slow and speed up your metabolism. Some calories are going to be easier for your body to absorb, others harder, and vice versa. Calories are a blunt instrument, but still a useful one if you keep track on not only how many calories you consume, but from which food sources. The problem people are having is simply that they don't know how to make this caloric deficit happen, or they know that's what they have to do but can't find a way to stick with a plan. So I'm going to lay out the factors you can manipulate so that hopefully you'll be able to make your very own weight loss plan instead of trying some unsustainable diet that you can't follow for a longer time than a month or so. So first of all, losing fat is all about what and how you eat. Let me repeat that. Losing fat is all about the way you eat. It's not about logging hours of cardio on the training bike and then maybe even thinking you can eat like crap. It's about how you eat. When it comes to eating, it's all about your total calorie intake, food sources and macronutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrates, and eating frequency, how often you eat. You have to figure out a way to combine these three into a plan you can follow. You have to figure out how much of which foods you can eat when. Let's say you're overweight today and want to make a plan to lose weight. I'm gonna hold your hand and walk through it. Yes, so don't even remember if I said it at the start this time, but I've made an example with a guy that decides to lose weight, uses these factors and makes a very own plan to do so. So here we go. First of all, you'd want to figure out what your daily calorie maintenance is, the amount of calories you need to stay at your current weight. You Google calorie calculator, something like that, punch in your stats and get a number. This number should be pretty accurate unless you're very overweight. Because if you're very overweight, the formula might not work because you can gain so much more fat than muscle, so it might give you a very high number that you won't lose fat on. But for our example here, let's say this number is 2,500 calories. Now, a traditional bodybuilder cut is one where you're still eating on a high frequency on a daily basis, but eating less than, in this case, 2,500 calories. 500 calories is often the deficit you start at. I think that's very bad for a whole lot of reasons, but mainly that it's unhealthy to spike insulin that often. It leads to inflammation, diabetes, and food addiction. You want to find a way where you're in full control of what you eat and don't feel like you're starving yourself. That won't be sustainable. So I will say that it is possible to eat 6 meals a day on, say, a 500 calorie deficit, 2,000 calories in total for our example, but I would not recommend it. So since we're not talking about cutting down for a bodybuilder show or even Beach 2020, but forever, our focus will be on forging our own way of eating that is sustainable. It's going to be a trip where you try different things and find out what works for you. So don't get discouraged if you're having a hard time in the beginning. You're training your way of eating and will progress just as you do lifting weights. So for our example, say that you're this 2,500 calorie maintenance guy. Maybe you say that, I'm not even hungry in the mornings anyway, so why don't I have my first meal of the day at lunch? Then I have dinner after work. This will give me about a daily 7-hour eating window and daily 17-hour fasting window. This means that if I want to be on a 500 daily caloric deficit, I can even have 2 nice-sized meals, 1,000 calories each. I think this is a routine I can follow. So this is at first when you decide you're gonna lose weight, you make a plan to make that formula or the mathematical equation have a negative result using the different factors, manipulating them in a way you think will work for you. But then you might run into problems after the initial plan. Maybe the number the calculator gave you was too high, so you have to try and push the calories down a bit more. Maybe you've been so sedentary for a while that your metabolism has drastically slowed down and something like 3 10-minute walks would ramp it up a lot. Maybe the foods you're eating aren't keeping you satiated long enough, so you have to experiment with food choices. So maybe our 2,500 calorie maintenance guy here finds that he becomes really hungry in the evenings, eating on this deficit. So say the 2,500 calorie maintenance guy finds that he becomes really hungry in the evenings, eating on this deficit, so he sometimes fails and has a snack in the evening. So he decides to try out a low-carb diet for a while because he's heard that higher fat diets keep you satiated for a longer time. And wouldn't you know it, that kind of food was a good choice for him to stay full and content for the whole day. Now he's able to stick to his picked eating frequency and caloric deficit with ease, and his fat is starting to drop. There are many different tweaks you can do. Say that you're someone who wants to try eating 1 meal a day, but the problem is you feel really full when you try to eat everything you're having in one sitting, and then you still get hungry in the evenings. Maybe you try stretching it out to not eating 1 meal in 1 hour, but maybe 2 meals in 4 hours instead, and voila, now we were able to eat enough to stay comfortably full on a deficit. So does that make sense? Our 2,500 calorie maintenance guy forging his first weight loss protocol. Your plan might look a lot different, but I hope this makes it clear which factors you can play around with to make this weight loss happen. Like I said, I promote prolonged fasting mainly, as I find it far superior to all alternatives as long as you're not on steroids, I think. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways, and if you can make a plan to lose the weight and keep it off, then hey, you're doing a lot better than most people. So hopefully you understand what you need to do, the mindset of it, and I'm gonna end here by just throwing some good tips I picked up. What I meant by lose all the fat is all the fat that you want. Different people have different goals. Like for instance, I now shoot for a really low number because, I'm gonna be a trainer. That's good PR to be ripped, And also this online personality thing, So first of all, use the scale only for measuring the trend. Don't set a certain goal in numbers if you're not, an athlete and have to make a certain weight class or something. Go by what feels good and looks good to you in the mirror. Just be honest with yourself. Many people get a strange relationship to the scale, but here's how you use it. You weigh yourself at the same time of the day every time you weigh yourself. Be aware that you could be dehydrated or carry water and having varying amounts of food or crap in your gut. In other words, don't freak out if you've gained 1 kilo from one day to another, since the exact number is depending on many different factors. What you do is you look at the trend and see if all the weights you've logged will make a negative curve on the y-axis of a diagram. Many tools we use are blunt, but still useful, and we're gonna come back to that. Eating frequency. Turns out most people eat on a 15-hour eating window today. Just reducing that eating window down to say 8 hours can help you regain insulin resistance and therefore better working appetite/hunger mechanism. Also, for some people it's just an easier rule to follow, going by time instead of calories. Again, if you're going to do intermittent fasting, find an eating window that works for you and your life and your schedule. Eating frequency can also be about which days you eat on. If you only have 5 kilos to lose, and especially if you're active and never tried prolonged fasting before, I understand that it can seem tough to just stop eating. But if you're more overweight than that, and especially sedentary, I'll tell you right now, you should use at least 48-hour fasts and probably 72-hour fasts. You have a lot of stored energy to eat from. The only tough thing will be withdrawals. Your body is actually doing great. This is how you get rid of food addiction for real, and it will be so much faster than any other alternative. Food choices, macros. If you're serious about changing your lifestyle, the key is to find changes that are sustainable. So if you're on a really unhealthy diet, take one step at a time towards a better diet. Like Jeff Cavalier at leanx.com says, find healthy foods that you actually enjoy eating. There's going to be a lot of those, and if you have less healthy choices, make sure they work with the overall plan. If you eat a lot of sugars, your progression might look something like eating sugar, switching to artificial sweeteners, but still maybe having soda every day, but it's artificial, so you have your food addiction. Maybe you phase it out. Maybe you just drink them on weekends. Just because someone else eats in a certain way doesn't mean you have to. Find what works for you. Generally, low carb works better for weight loss for whatever reason. Yeah, I hate the expression, but people say you become this fat-burning machine. And when you first do the switch to that diet, it happens for most people, but some people will stall. But generally, a deficit might be necessary too, but low carb is good for weight loss. Another blunt instrument is calories. Calories, it can both be that, say, I weigh 75 kilos and some other guy weighs 75 kilos. And if that calculator, it depends on what stats you put in, but some calculators might give me and this guy, even though, say that he doesn't work out at all and I do 5 times a week, it might give us the same number, but in reality, he needs to be on a lot bigger deficit to burn fat. So you have factors like that, and also all foods, we can measure how many calories are in the food, but not how many we can absorb. Like something might contain 1,000 calories and you can absorb almost all of it, and something you can maybe only absorb 70% of, or something like that. So you have to learn, you have to be aware. I don't log my food, like write it down, but be aware of your food choices in some way at least, and see if some calories are more calories for you than others. Cardio. Yeah, like I said, cardio is not the most important tool for burning fat, but it's still useful and it's healthy in other ways, and it doesn't hurt. So if you are running, if you like jogging, I mean, keep doing it. But jogging is one of the worst ways if the purpose is actually burning fat. You get very little bang for your buck, like compared to the effort level. How much fat you burn is not great. Walking is actually the best for many reasons. Like, it can be nice. I can go on a walk with a friend, or, I live near a forest. I can just go out to take a walk there. You can actually go for a walk. But the best thing about walking is you can just make a lifestyle change so that you walk. Use it as a tool of transportation instead. Like, if you have to be somewhere in an hour, think to yourself, do I really have to take the bus? Do I have time to take a walk there? So walking, or just low intensity cardio basically, but since walking is the way we move around a lot. So the good thing about low intensity cardio is most people can do it for a really long time if they want to, and also it can be practical. Resistance strength training, like lifting weights, of course, it's fun, you get cool muscles and stuff, but also the difference is that cardio burns more calories like right when you do it than lifting weights does, but gaining more lean muscle mass will make you burn a lot more calories overall, because that tissue just needs more energy. So not immediately, but in the long term, building some muscle is a great tool for managing weight. Be honest with yourself always. Know if something is truly a cheat, like you screwing up, or if you effectively tweaked something into your plan, because sometimes you do. Maybe, you skipped lunch because you're gonna have a big dinner with friends, something like that. If you do screw up, don't beat yourself up over it. Failures are necessary steps to victory, and it's all about the big picture. If you screw up 1 of 5 times, you're succeeding 4 of 5 times. With progress, in any way, I always say that the curve might go down sometimes, but as long as the ups are bigger or more frequent than the downs, that's the important part. Just like with a scale, you keep an eye on the trend. And finally, remember that your health and long-term well-being is much more important than a short, pleasant taste sensation in your mouth when you eat. I'll tell you right now, food wasn't the biggest one for me, but I've done that, seeking all the easy pleasures in life, that lifestyle. It made me feel like crap. I didn't realize how much it affected you. I'll never go back to living an unhealthy lifestyle. Even if it's tough to get there in the beginning, it demands discipline, it's so worth it. So that's it for this episode. Sorry if it's still a little weird. It's better than last time, I promise. I understand it's a little weird with me reading. Hopefully I don't sound too monotone. But I didn't have time. A project, when it gets like this, you need to kind of scrap it and start from the beginning. But I don't have time. I start school now. So I'm not going to have as much time, but I will try my best to put out more content. You can encourage me by liking the video, subscribing, recommending to friends. Yes. And just because this was about weight loss, I want to recommend Snake Diet Maya. Search for her here on YouTube. She started out at 500 pounds and she's living with Cole Robinson to fast down to normal weight. And I've thought since day one, I just feel it, that she's gonna do it. So you can watch her for some inspiration. Alright, take care everybody.